The Commonwealth Games, for those of you that don't know, because I wasn't very familiar, are pretty much a different version of the Olympics. I'll just sum it up at that. We don't need a long history of what they are, but it's a pretty big thing over in the UK, not here in America. But it is somewhat like the Olympics. And what do we know about the Olympics? Well, we know that they always have a massive ritual opening ceremony, more so than probably any event that we see other than the Super Bowl halftime show. We've seen them show us that the outbreak was coming in those opening ceremonies from, I believe, 2012. We've seen so many other things I've covered over the years. It's always symbolism in it. Well, the Commonwealth Games decided that they were going to do a little ritual ceremony as well. And this one would be dedicated to Baal. This would be all about Baal worship, which we read about in the Bible, and I'll go over some verses in the Bible talking about Baal worship. But Baal is depicted as a bull, okay? Now, you might see this, you might say, I don't know, that's a stretch. Most of you probably wouldn't because you know what this is, but some people might say it is. Well, let me just let you know, the Commonwealth Games, this isn't a rodeo. You know, if somebody was having a rodeo somewhere, some big rodeo event, and the ceremony revolved around a bull because, you know, it's a rodeo, then we could all look at it and say, all right, maybe they were really just doing this for the bull, but you'll see the other things involved in this, including the Tower of Babel, which show you that this is indeed about Baal worship. That's why they use a bull. And of course, as always, as all these events are, they're always inside of a giant circle. Now, this might be a little bit of a stretch circle. Some might say an oval. Let's just be realistic. These are ritual circles. You can even see how they put flames around it. You know, fake flames, but they put fire around it because when these witches and Satanists do rituals, well, they do it in the ritual circle, the magic circle, circle of protection. That's what they do these inside of. That's why on these stages, when musicians always perform at these award shows, they're always doing it inside of a giant circle. I always point that out. The repetition is there, the spell casting is there, and that's why they do it, because they're casting spells. So this is Baal worship. So where do I begin? Let's talk about Baal in the Bible real quick for those of you who don't know. In Judges chapter 2, verses 11 through 14, then the sons of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served the Baals. And they forsook the Lord and the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods from among the gods of the peoples who were around them, and bowed themselves down to them. Thus they provoked the Lord to anger. So they forsook the Lord and served Baal. So many Israelites, many people in those days were worshiping Baal. The Bible continues to talk about Baal. If you go through the Bible, Judges is filled with talk of him, or it, whatever you want to call this freaking thing. In Jeremiah chapter 19, verses 4 through 6, it sums up best what they did, because this is stuff that we see in today's world. Because they have forsaken me and have estranged this place, and have burned incense in it unto other gods, whom neither they nor their fathers have known, nor the kings of Judah, and have filled this place with the blood of innocents. They have built also the high places of Baal, to burn their sons with fire for burnt offerings unto Baal, which I commanded not, nor spake it, neither came it into my mind. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that this place shall no more be called Tophet, nor the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. And it continues in the Bible, in Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 44, I will punish Baal in Babylon and make him spew out what he has swallowed. The nations will no longer stream to him, and the wall of Babylon will fall. So the New World Order, these people, they Baal worship. This is devil satanic worship. Okay, and again, Baal is depicted as a bull. Now I'm going to play the ceremony for you now. Keep your eye out for the rise, the burning and the destruction and the rise of the Tower of Babel. Take a look at all of this Baal worship.
Welcome to Birmingham.
me the greatest pleasure to declare the 22nd Commonwealth Games open.
So, of course, it shouldn't surprise anyone that Prince Charles is showing up there because all of these world leaders, all these people of nations bow down, just like that scripture says, Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 44, which I just read before the video. I will punish Baal and Babylon and make him spew out what he has swallowed. The nations will no longer stream to him, and the wall of Babylon will fall. Now, in that clip, there was a bunch of things that you could see. You could see that they even were making a giant all-seeing eye. From the aerial shot, you could have seen it better. But you could see that they were making an all-seeing eye right in the middle of the ritual circle, which isn't a surprise because that's what this stuff is, right? But you also have noticed the Tower of Babel. They didn't just say, hey, you want to, let's build like this little tower thing. People just don't think when they see this stuff. They just don't think. They just see it and they just like, oh, la-di-da-di-da. I'm going to have a lollipop and I'm going to watch and I'm not going to think because they don't think ever. But when you see all this stuff and you realize this is all scripture, they're showing you these things. They're showing you the Tower of Babel being rebuilt and the Baal worship. They are connected to one another. Now, people don't seem that familiar with the Tower of Babel. It's one of the reasons that our nations are divided, that God created the term Babel, or I should say that we use the term Babel, right? When you hear Babel, it means different languages. Well, God is the one who divided the nations because what they were trying to do was create this city, right? In Genesis chapter 11, verse 4, then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth, right? Making a name for themselves, trying to build a tower that reached heaven. And of course, God intervened with their plans and stopped it from occurring. And people just don't seem to realize that this is what they've been trying to redo, is rebuild the Tower of Babel, getting all the nations together again, creating a one world government, a one world order with one language, everything being about one. That's what they had in the beginning, and that's what God scrambled and divided everyone for and from because of what they were trying to do, which was defy God, which was to become like gods. And that's why the tower was trying to reach out. Now, you saw the tower in that clip burning, so to speak. You saw flames in it, right? I guess they didn't have a budget to actually use real fire, so instead they just used TV screens to make it look like flames. But what they were trying to depict was the Tower of Babel, which was destroyed, then being rebuilt again, and you could see it in the clip rising back up. And that has to do with the phoenix rising from the ashes, right? That's something we always hear about, the phoenix, the phoenix, the phoenix, yet nobody realizes what it means. They have to destroy to rebuild. Destroy all of this that is set up in place to rebuild this new world order. And the phoenix will rise from the ashes. Satan will rise from the ashes out of this. This new world government will rise. So that's what this opening ceremony is depicting. Yet many will see it and they'll say, I thought that they were just really having a great time in a giant circle and they wanted to just play with a giant mechanical bull. No, and that's no bull. Okay, this is Baal worship. Baal has always been depicted in scripture as a bull. You can go through many, many images, many historical arts that show this, right? You see some of the pictures that I put up in this video where you can see Baal, right? And you can see people bringing their children as sacrifices to Baal. The Israelites and many people were worshiping Baal, and they were sacrificing their children as offerings. Now, where do we hear about those things and see those? Oh, right, in today's world, right? How ritual sacrifice is such a big thing that goes untalked about. And how do they do ritual sacrifices? Well, they do these things called Planned Parenthood. That's one way that they get those ritual offerings to Baal. When people willingly are doing that, thinking that it has something to do with their rights as a female, make sure that they go back into the workplace because apparently that's more important, sitting there answering phones or whatever somebody does in an office at a cubicle, making PowerPoints, etc., is way more important in today's world than actually being a mother, which is the most important job that there is, and something that a man cannot do, despite, of course, what Congress tells you, by the way, about, men being able to birth, and apparently men can make breast milk now too. Go figure, right? Anyway, we won't go down that road. But in today's world, right, this is a common theme, and this is part of Baal worship, these Planned Parenthood offerings that are done, because that's what they are. And again, you always hear the word sacrifice. I've done videos in the past, if you're new. I mean, this other channel did videos in the past, if you're new to this channel, talking about the word sacrifice. Think about how we use that word in everyday life. And we hear athletes and celebrities all the time, right? All the time. Oh, you know, I'm here. They win an award. I'm here. I've sacrificed so much. Well, they're not kidding, because they did sacrifice so much. Usually you'll find a close family member who has recently passed, or passed right around the time that they became famous and known. And they always will say, oh, I sacrificed so much to get here, right? And we all just regurgitate that type of stuff, because that's how this whole process works in mind control. We say things we don't even know what they mean. So they have people saying that, like, oh, I sacrificed something. What did you say? You ever hear somebody say that in your day-to-day life? Like, oh, I sacrificed a lot. Like, what did you sacrifice? Like an hour and a half of sleep? You sacrificed what? I'm like, I sacrificed so much for this job. Did you? Well, they want you to say things like that because they have dual meanings, right? So sacrifice, it was about sacrifice to Baal. This is a giant ritual for Baal. And these are the types of things we always see in these opening ceremonies. So it's not a surprise that when we see it, but the problem is that most people see it and they're like, it just looks like a giant bull to me. Oh, right, because how does a bull work into this? Like if you were hired to be the person who choreographed and wrote the opening ceremony for something like this, or the Olympics, which are massive, massive events with billions of dollars probably behind. Well, the Olympics has billions. I don't know if this was probably millions behind it. And you were hired and you're just sitting in a room. You're like, let's come up with an idea, you know, for this kind of money. You're getting paid a lot of money. Like, let's just have a giant bull come out. Huh? No one's like, oh, well, there's no event here with a bull, Douglas. Why would we do that? I don't know. Aren't bulls really cool? Yeah, but it doesn't really make sense, you know? Don't we want something that makes sense that like people can see, or it's like, yeah, but a bull would be cool. Right? Huh? No, that's not how it works. Just the common person thinks that's how all this stuff works. Oh, it's art. No, they show you in plain sight what they're doing, who they are, and who they worship. They show you. This is universal law. It's just the wool that's been pulled over people's eyes, because we've been told art and these other deceptions that they use to make people not realize what they're actually seeing. If they didn't, and they actually saw and Satan came out in the open and was like, hey, I'm Satan, you know, here I am, and these are all my things that I do, and you choose a side, then more people would probably choose to follow God. But instead, they're being deceived. And that's how this all works. It's just a giant deception. Rituals and ceremonies are all around us all the time. So that's the opening ceremony.